Hello, Planeswalkers. Welcome to the next episode of the Lotus Archives. As always, I am Kava.
Hello, everybody. This is Jack.
And this week, it's going to be a little bit easier for us here. But as you know, last episode we started talking about our color theory. So, last episode here, we talked about mono white colors. Yeah. That was a rough episode for both of us.
I mean, white is... We kind of just came up with, like, it just being, its own thing. It's lackluster. It kind of just it stays in its lane. Right? Like, white goes its way, does its thing, and then that's it.
Yeah, exactly. White is tough. Especially for guys like Jack and myself, where we don't really play mono white at all. So
I wonder if that's because we just don't align ourselves with its philosophy,
I don't know. I mean, I think that definitely has something to do with it. I mean, that says a lot about me personally, considering one of the only mono-color decks I have is a black deck. But
I mean, we'll get to that one in a bit.
But I think a lot of it has to do is none of the commanders and their abilities spoke to me. I mean, I've had this conversation before multiple times. I don't like necessarily building a commander that everyone has. I look at the older cards and some of the lesser known cards, and that's how I like to build my decks, and that's how I kind of pull my cards. I mean, with the exception of my Miram deck, most of my main commanders, most people either have only seen it once or twice before, or they've never even seen it being played. Man, my Urtai deck, I've only actually talked to a few people that haven't built and played him consistently, and that deck is built, their decks are built completely different than how I have mine built. But regardless, this week we are talking about blue. Jack, what would you say blue represents in Magic?
So blue is the color of knowledge, intellect, the pursuit of the greater understanding of the universe, I'd say. Blue is really just all about, it sees the world as just this big, huge oyster, and that it's open to interpretations of however they want to, fold it and make it their own. It's a very creative color in its philosophies and how it approaches problems. It's really that sit down, think about it, and figure its stuff out very meticulously. Right, we see that in their main creature type being wizards, how they're all just very big. They're very big brain.
Yes.
To an extent, right?
I mean, talk about main creature types. I mean, when most people think mono blue, obviously they're going to think counterspell.
Yeah.
That's not all blue is good with, is spells. I mean, yes, the majority of the top mono blue decks are based around slinging spells and extra turns and draw steps and all this other shenanigans type stuff. But blue could also be somewhat of a powerhouse when it comes to creatures too. I mean, you got creatures and tribes like the merfolk.
Yeah, merfolk is their biggest one.
I mean, wizards,
for sure.
They definitely focus more on the spellcasting aspect of the game. Whereas the merfolk, they kind of remind me of how they did elves in Magic. They definitely reward you for having a shit ton of merfolk on the battlefield.
I've often heard merfolk are basically just the elves of the sea.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty much. You see them in, not even just in EDH, but you see them in Modern and all kinds of different other, Legacy they existed. They have so many pieces of utility, and I think merfolk are one of the tribes that has some of the most lords out of them. Like
I
they have a lot of creatures that pump them. They just have a lot of support. They've been getting support for years, and Wizards of the Coast is not going to stop
I mean, I definitely think
printing
Merfolk are
support.
up there. I mean, the four off the top of my head, like the four biggest tribals. I mean, now they're calling it freaking typal. I don't see anything wrong with tribal myself,
Yeah, nah.
but the four biggest that have had the most support over the last 30 plus years
Yeah,
is going to be dragons, elves, zombies, and vampires. And according to EDH Rec, those are the ones that have the most support, most decks built, and then you're gonna have like humans, dinosaurs, goblins, angels, Eldrazi's, Sliver, Cat, Merfolk.
yeah.
I mean, it just goes on and on. But Merfolk are definitely more of an up and coming tribe. I mean, I remember back in when we went back or when we came to Ixalan for the first time, and you had pirates, vampires, dinosaurs, and merfolk. The, excuse me. Those were the tribes on that plane.
Yep.
So we got a shit ton of merfolk cards. We got a bunch more different vampire style cards, and of course we got dinosaurs. But without us going too far in a rabbit hole, we are blue. What does blue care about?
So Blue's biggest thing and like what it represents are, like I mentioned, knowledge, creativity. It's a very subtle color, right? So like blue isn't a very they're not very active, right? They're not really aggressive. They don't, you know, hit the ground running. They're very methodical. They blue likes to take its time and react rather than be proactive. Right? We see that in their counterspell strategy where they're going to take the time, they're going to sit back, you're going to see the blue player lead their mana up a lot. They play a lot of stuff at instant speed. They do things very reactively. And they like to take that long game. So they like to think out their strategies. They like to be very meticulous. I'm sure I used that word before, but that's just what their thing is, right? Their whole strategy is just to take their time, think it out, they're very cold, they're very calculated. And we see that in a lot of their strategies, mostly being control and combo related.
All right, so with that being said, I mean, we talked about kind of a little bit about what blue represents and what they care
Yep.
about. I mean, I think just a little brief recap. I mean, blue is definitely knowledge, creativity, intellect, artifice, and one of the key ones that always stuck out to me was passivity. When I think
Yeah.
blue, that is probably one of the main colors that I think of. They really don't necessarily want people attacking each other, hence the counter spells and Swan Song and different cards like
Right.
that. I mean, Swan Song might be one of the perfect examples for this, for passivity. I mean, you're changing a bigger creature into a damn swan. That's not going to be as powerful by nearly any means if you're using Swan Song correctly. But
Right. Or just even the basic, simple, good old fashioned counterspell.
exactly,
It's just 2 blue, counter target spell. It basically, for those that don't know, counterspells, it's a reactive instance. So you can cast it, you know, in response to your opponent's spells, and it basically causes it to fizzle. Right? Like counter is pretty much to just you remove it from the stack, you get it out of play, or you stop it from even entering play altogether. It's just it's gone, doesn't exist anymore. It's like it never happened.
exactly. And with that, with blue here, it sees itself as more of the, I don't want to say enforcer because I'd probably put that towards green, but blue it definitely sees itself as the tactician. I think that's the
Yeah,
best way to
yeah.
put it here. Um,
It's the smart guy in the group. It's it's that like if you're playing something like we can kind of relate it back to D&D, right? If anyone's played Baldur's Gate, it's the Gale of the group, right? It's the meticulous, it's the wizard, it's can relate to characters like Merlin or smart guys like that just very methodical. Gandalf, right?
yep. I mean, I would say Merlin is a big one. Um,
Yep,
Dumbledore is probably one I would
yep.
put at. Then you got guys from the other end of the nerdy world. You got a guy like Spock. I mean,
Yeah, the very cold,
emotionless,
calculated. Yep.
logical, focused. Um, and then you also have something that's definitely way out there. You could put someone in like Lisa Simpson in there. Her intelligence is super important to her, and she knows that she knows more than everybody else in that room, that wherever she is. And with that, most
So that goes
blue
by the obnoxious side of blue.
exactly.
That's
And
the obnoxious know-it-all side that people actually kind of hate.
exactly. When I look at guys that play mono blue, they are always the guys that want to play the game, but they want to play it their way. Um,
Yeah, guilty as charged.
yes.
I'm a big mono blue fan.
I mean,
This is like this is my color of choice, folks. Like this is pretty much like this is where I live, right? Like I live in the mono blue world. I love this color so much. This yeah.
yeah. I mean, with that, you see a lot of mono blue players being ostracized because they do want to make sure they play the game their way. And a lot of players that are sitting down, they don't want to see that shit. They want to be able to come in and actually play their cards that they either bought or they found. You a lot of times you'll see people that start with mono blue. You'll see them evolve into more of a counter heavy deck or into the stacks mindset. Um, of course, everyone starts someplace, and when I first started
Yep.
learning how to play Magic, the last thing I thought I would ever be is a fan of blue and a fan of stacks. But it's a viable strategy. It's a way you can play the game, but at the same time, you don't want to piss other people off too much. Which is why if you're going a mono blue deck, it's good because you only have so much mana you can use. You only have
Right.
so many cards. Once you use your spells, they go to the graveyard. So unless you have any graveyard recursion for those mono blue spells in a mono blue deck, you're probably not going to be able to play them multiple times.
There is some blue is kind of limited in its respect there. So yeah, so like when we talk about like what blue, excels at, right? But they do have their downsides, right? Like blue isn't exactly all perfect and all powerful.
Oh god, no.
They do have their distinct downfall, which when I was actually first starting out playing, I was taught this lesson pretty early on because I liked blue. When I was first starting out, blue spoke to me the most out of any other color. It was honestly between blue and black were like the two colors that I really vibed with for the most part. Nowadays, I'm kind of leaning more towards red a little bit. Like I lean more in like the red and black realm just because I find more fun in those cards these days. But blue's biggest thing I always found was that they're very good at reacting to a card being played. However, once that card is on the field, blue kind of is just like, all right, well, it's on the board. Can somebody else deal with it, please?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
I
blue
mean,
doesn't really have the destroy target permanent, effects that you find in the other colors.
God no. Unfortunately, I mean that's part of the reason why every color has its place, and
Yep.
you got guys that, and that's why these people started mixing colors together because each color
Yep.
is good at a certain thing. Um, that's why most of the top decks nowadays you see them they have multiple colors. Very rarely will you still see a monocolored deck being at the top of the charts for tournament play and stuff like that. At least that I've seen.
Yeah.
I mean,
It
even
can be done.
yeah. I mean, even for Commander, looking at the top 10 decks on EDH Rec, there's only
Mm.
one monocolored deck in the top 10, and that's Krenko's Mob Boss. That's the only monocolored deck in the top 10 built Commander decks of all time. I mean
That's very interesting.
that says a lot. The next monocolored deck is Giada, Font of Hope, in mono white, and she's not
Huh.
until number 20 on that list.
I would have thought Urza, Lord High Artificer, would be up there.
No, Urza. Let's see, where's Urza on this? He is ranked 44.
Really? Wow.
Yes. Um,
Like when I think high competitive, CEDH levels of play for blue, Urza's my top pick. Like I go if I want to build a crazy combo-y control CEDH, bag of nonsense, I pick Urza. I've played Urza
yeah,
before.
exactly.
My friends wanted to hang me from the rooftops when I played Urza.
I mean, granted, this isn't competitive play rankings. These are more
Okay.
the most common or the top commanders the past 2 years, and that's
Okay.
and so everyone knows that goes for people that are just building decks on the decks that they most want to play. Um,
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so blue definitely has its strengths and weaknesses, just like every other color does.
but
Like
so
even in this article here that we've got from Mark Rosar that he updated, he says so. Blue's biggest strength is likely to outthink their opponents, although they have the access to unlimited knowledge. Let's see, they have all the answers. The problem though is working very slow, has a tendency to be passive when it needs to be taking action. So actually, yeah, you see this a lot. So like, if you're really fast, if your opponent's really fast and gets stuff out quicker than you do, then blue's gonna struggle. And I mean, we can take that and look at from like my time in Legacy, where I played a deck called High Tide,
yep,
which is pretty much just a callback to the instant one blue mana spell High Tide, which basically just says all islands tap for an additional blue, which does affect every island in play, so it helped my opponent start playing islands. But I took that to a big legacy event, and I would lose to big, fast, mono red or high speed aggro decks because they would just be faster. They would be if I didn't have the counter spells I needed to stop their game plan, they would steamroll over me. So that is one of Blue's other big weaknesses. Is like they lack a lot of removal. They have some removal, right? Like they have their like the Pognify, where you can destroy a creature, make it into a monkey or something.
oh yes,
So like they have those, but like their destroy or exile stuff typically comes with another clause of like, okay, give the opponent something else, or you know, replace it with something like Reality Shift can exile a creature, but then you manifest their top card.
yep.
So you got things like that. But yeah, I'd say Blue's biggest struggle is probably just dealing with really fast opponents.
Yeah. So I'm looking at. I just happened to pull it up. It's a commander tier list, and
Hmm.
obviously you got tier 0, which are considered some of the best of all time,
Yep.
and that's going to be Nagila, the Blade Blossom, Thrasios, Triton Hero, and Timno the Weaver. But
Yeah, that Thrasios Timna combo is
yeah,
disgusting.
I mean, Nagila and the Thrasios Timna, I think, are probably the two of the best decks in the game if built right. But
Yeah.
in that tier 1, would be the top 14 best commanders that aren't in that tier 0, there is only, let's see, two mono creatures.
Mm.
A bunch of partners, but those two mono creatures are two creatures that I would not have expected. And that's going to be Jessica, Thrice Reborn, who happens to be a Planeswalker commander. And
Interesting.
yeah, in mono red. And then the other monocolor one in the top 14 there is Tevesh Zat, or Zat, Doom of Fools, who is mono black.
Interesting.
That is something that completely blows my mind because the next monocolor creature that I see on this list that doesn't have partner isn't until, let's see, Magda, the Brazen Outlaw, mono
Huh.
red, and she is in tier 2.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, and let's see.
It's interesting to know that there's not. I find the lack of mono blue there a little disturbing.
Yeah, the next one is Urza, Lord High Artificer in tier 2.
Yeah, that makes sense. He is the top blue commander.
Yeah, but I mean, you have a lot of. I mean, Christ, tier 3. Now it's the third mono red commander that's in there with Bergie, God of Storytelling. So, like,
Interesting.
it blows my mind actually because it's not something I expect. And then tier 3, the next one would be a mono white and Gandalf the White.
Yeah.
But
Huh.
it's one of those things for me where I'm just sitting there. I'm like, huh, I did not expect that. I was expecting Urza to be a lot higher than tier 2. And I was expecting to see a little bit more color variation than red and black. Um, Especially since a lot of people still don't play monocolored decks in Commander, but obviously at the CEDH tiers, mono red is one of the best you could do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much finalizing my one mono red deck now, which is the Slicer Hired Muscle.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly, but we'll get to red when we get to red. That's a little off topic.
Yes. So, mono blue. I know
Yes.
you've played mono blue for a long time. I know you've had an
Uh,
Urza Lord High Artificer deck. I know
I
you had an
did,
Azami
yes.
deck. Right now,
Yes.
what is your deck of choice for mono blue?
So, I know I was talking about how I live for mono blue and I love having mono blue decks. The really hilarious part of all that is I don't currently own a put together mono blue deck.
Wait, really?
Yes.
That surprises the hell out of me.
I know. So,
Christ,
the
even
last
I
one
have
I
a put
owned.
together one.
Yes, so the last one I had was Urza Lord High Artificer, who is a 2/2 blue. When he enters the battlefield, he makes a construct creature token that's a 0/0 colorless construct. with this creature's it gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. So it's not its power and toughness equals to it. It's just it gets +1/+1 for each one. You can tap an untapped artifact you control, add blue, pay 5 colorless, shuffle your library, exile the top card. Until end of turn, you can play it without paying its mana cost.
Okay.
So the way I built this Urza deck, because his tap and untapped artifact ability isn't related to, like, it's not an activated ability where you have to wait for summoning sickness or whatever to pass by. You can just do it instantly.
Yeah.
I would play effects like Static Orb and Winter Orb, things like that, where they had this little clause on them that if the card is untapped, players can't untap more than 2 permanents during their untap step. Is Static Orb. So the way I was cheeky with this, and like how other people are, is they would leave it untapped throughout the entire game, and then when it gets back to their turn, you tap it for the blue, and then it lets you untap all your permanents.
Oh, nice.
So it's the same with Winter Orb is a 2-mana artifact. As long as it's untapped, players can't untap more than 1 land.
I mean, with that style deck, you can go even more of an asshole route and put a card like
which is what I did.
Well, you can put a card like
that's
Memnarch.
Exactly. Yeah. So I had this going. It was very combo centric. It played all the top tier stuff I could get my hands on, like Cyclonic Rift, Rhystic Study, at least 10 counter spells. It was an obnoxious thing to play against that my friends were like, I think this was one of the first decks. Well, it wasn't. No, Azami was my first iteration of just crazy combo wombo. I want to win the game deck. But this was the most recent one years back where my playgroup was like, okay, so we're going to put that in a lockbox, and we're basically going to attribute it to, like, somebody needs to put in nuclear launch codes to get this deck to see the light of day. Because otherwise, you're just never going to play it. Because it would win with bullshit like Thassa's Oracle or Laboratory Maniac, where if my deck was empty, I'd win the game.
Ooh, yeah, that
so,
makes
like,
it rough.
Yeah, so the deck would play, crazy combos of, like, infinite mana sources and just instantaneous 2-card I win the game combos where it could happen at any point. I'd play instant speed stuff. It was a rough time. It did the same thing kind of over and over, which
it gets boring after a while.
It can get tedious, and ultimately I reached a point with it where it kind of started to hurt my brain a little bit. Where, like, it can circle back to when I played that high tide deck in Legacy. That was 8 hours at that big event in Syracuse that I went to. And for those that don't know, high tide was like a storm style deck where you play as many spells as possible during your turn. But the version I had was called Solidarity, where I played on my opponent's turn. So I would wait till, like, their end step or their second main phase, and I would start popping off. But the way I won the game with that deck is I played a card that milled my opponent and had Storm attached to it. So for every spell I cast, the mill card was copied.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah, but so this meant that I had to do math. I had to count the cards that my opponent had in play. I had to count the cards in their hand. I had to see what their graveyard looked like. And then I had to subtract that amount from 60 to know how many cards are in their deck. And then I had to use High Tide, calculate my mana, make sure I had enough spells. I had to multiply things. It was a lot of math. Like, by the end of the 8 hours, my brain was fried.
Yeah.
So I kind of stopped playing blue after a while. It was just, or I stopped playing that high level of blue, and I've honestly just struggled finding a good blue commander that can avoid all of that. I'm thinking Merfolk. I have a lot of Merfolk. I love the Merfolk tribe.
I mean, that's what I was just about to say. I mean, you go Merfolk.
Yeah.
You could even go something that's like birds. There's a lot of birds in mono blue
Yeah,
colors.
you could do a really fun like blue bird style, just casual, fun, simple. Like blue doesn't have to be this, you don't got to be the big blue meanie
Yeah,
with it,
exactly.
like it has a lot of these like it's got an emphasis on counter spells, but its biggest emphasis will always be card draw. Right? You're
Yeah.
always going to want to just draw your deck, have a lot of cards in your hand. So if you're the type of person that likes to sit there and likes to do, likes to be meticulous and likes to think out your plays, and if you're the type of person that's like, I want to, let the game go a little longer, maybe pull some stuff that can say no sometimes. Like I wouldn't say don't run 12 counter spells these days. I'd say maybe like 4 to 5
It's
is a
yeah,
healthy number, I think.
especially when a lot of like creature cards now are coming in with built-in ways to counter cards and counter spells.
Yep. Yep. So, and that actually is kind of its own unique thing of like, if you're just getting into blue and you're just starting to use counter spells for the first time, when do you counter, or what do you counter? Like, what spells do you counter?
Oh God. I mean, I think we could go on and talk about that for an entire episode. Um, it all is going to come down to table presence. Um,
Right? Like, that's what I think is like, there are some commanders where, like, say, for example, you're playing a fun Tolerant, right? Like the guy who, whenever you cast a spell or something, you make a Drake.
yep.
Right, so like say you're playing a fun Tolerant deck and I play Urza. Would you ever let Urza hit the board?
Probably not.
Right, so like you kind of got to look at what's your opponent playing, how well do you know them, do you play a lot, do you know what their decks do?
Yeah.
And that's just going to come down to like, okay, well, I know what your deck does. I know how you play. You might get a little upset about it, but I'm not going to let your commander resolve if I can help it.
Exactly. I mean, 1v1, you have to have a different mindset than if you're playing it in a pod. Um,
Right, 1v1 is very straightforward. It's just, okay, you're just playing a quick 1v1 game. You want to win, they want to win. Counter their
exactly.
obvious stuff.
I mean,
You
my
can't get any bad feels in a 1v1.
exactly. I mean, that's one of my biggest issues with like my Urtai deck. I
Hmm.
know it's not mono blue, but because it's based around counter spells and countering
Yep.
other people, not letting people play the game
Yep.
in a pod, it makes playing that deck a little bit more tricky. 'Cause at
Right, you got to be
least
very, like,
yes,
I don't know, I don't say political, but just very on point with your threat
it,
analysis.
exactly, and you have to have very very skilled with trying to figure out, okay, is this commander even going to be a threat to win the game?
Right.
And I hate to say it, but it's not even just about the commander, because if I'm sitting down playing someone, for example, if I'm playing you,
Hmm.
I know with regardless what commander you pull out, you have a chance to beat me. It doesn't matter. If we're playing the same level decks, same tier decks, you're
Right.
always going to have a chance to beat me regardless of who I'm playing. Um, so if I'm sitting down playing someone like you, I'm playing a lot more strategically in how I'm doing things. I'm not just right off the rip trying to put out my best shit and all that, because I know if I'm putting down combo pieces on the board, you're going to recognize those. Whereas
Right.
some other
Yeah.
people, if I put down freaking Painter's Servant, they might let it go. But I know if you see Painter's Servant hit the field, you know exactly what I'm doing.
Yep. I'm
Because,
gonna have to try to answer that.
yeah, exactly. Because I'm not stupid enough to play against you and leave Painter's Servant on the field unless I can immediately put down my combo piece.
Right. And like you would either need to like have a way to protect it or just win on the spot.
Exactly. So,
Which yeah, so I would say like, being able to recognize counter piece like combo pieces, things like that if you can. One big one that I learned really quickly was don't counter the tutor spell. Like if someone plays something like Demonic Tutor or Ideally Tutor, something like that, or they search their library for a card, don't counter the search spell. Counter what they searched for.
Exactly.
That was a lesson I learned real quick in Legacy because it was like, okay, well, you stopped them from doing one thing that could have been a bluff, and now they're on to something else, and you don't have a response for it.
Exactly. I mean, and that all comes from learning as you play. Because in playing new people, that's probably one of the biggest things for me that helped my experience in learning to grow as a player was expanding my horizons. When I first
Yep.
started, I played against the same three people every single week.
Yep.
It got to the point where I was sitting there like, okay, I know exactly what you're doing. Especially
Yep.
when we were younger and we didn't have a shit ton of decks. We had maybe one or two. So
Right. When the funds are limited, you can only build so many things, and then you want to hold on to that.
exactly. And obviously, as you play with a group, you start learning your friends' tendencies. You start learning their
Right.
tells. Unless they are a very good poker player, you're going to be able to tell what they're doing, even only playing 10 games together. If that 10 games was all the same deck, you're going to start realizing, oh, I know exactly what he's trying to do.
Yep.
So, for
Especially
me,
if there is that mono blue player in the group, then you'll know. You know, hopefully this episode can help people who have the mono blue player. You know, you'll be able to recognize who that is, and this can help you with their tendencies and what they're trying to do.
exactly. And with finishing up that thought process, learning how to play against a variety of people is just going to improve your skills. So go out there to your LGS or even something as simple as Arena. Jump on there, play new people, because the more people that you play and the more people that you interact with, you're gonna learn. Everyone thinks differently, obviously, and you're gonna learn that, oh, my buddy and this other guy have the same exact deck, but they play it completely differently. So everyone has their own spin on things. I mean, me and Jack can sit there and build the same exact commander, but I'd be
Yep.
willing to bet it would be completely different how we build it.
Yeah, nine times out of ten, I'm probably gonna try to put in some crazy combo into it.
Yeah. I mean, unless it's a card or a commander that is so straightforward with only one path to build it,
Hmm.
the decks are going to be different. I mean, I know if Jack and I both built an Urza deck, the core of the deck is going to be the same. But,
It would, yeah. Like you'd have the meta cards in there, like the cards that
exactly.
are just so good you have to run them.
Exactly. And so, getting to a different topic here.
Yeah,
So,
we kind of
Jack.
sidebarred into like tips and tricks on just being a good Magic player.
Oh, yeah. But
In
that's not
relation to blue,
always.
though, like it was in
Yes.
relation to blue, because like, how do you use counter spells? When should you counter spells in blue? So like, we stay on topic for the most part.
Yeah, exactly. So, Jack, you might be a little
Yeah.
bit better to explain this than I am.
Mm.
So, someone is looking to build their first mono blue deck,
Yeah.
and maybe they've been hesitant because they're not a huge fan of slinging spells and these crazy combos. Is there a commander out there that you would recommend that might ease someone into learning blue without going overboard?
Yes, actually, and it's actually one that I've been looking into as well myself to kind of just throw myself like get a nice mono blue deck going again. It is Sveilun of Sea and Sky. So she's a merfolk god, one colorless and two blue. She has indestructible as long as you control at least two other merfolk. Whenever Sviloon attacks, draw a card, and other merfolk you control have Ward 1.
Okay.
So it would be a very cool and interesting, just mono blue merfolk tribal. I have had a merfolk deck already in Sig River Guide, the white and blue
Yep.
merfolk commander, most popularly played by the professor himself, which I modeled the deck after because he and I have we share our love for merfolks. Like, I remember when I first started watching him and he brought up merfolk, I was like, hell yeah, because I tried playing merfolk in modern and just absolutely love the tribe. It's fantastic. I have a very deep love for the ocean and sea life. I think it's all very fascinating. So, merfolk have always been one of my favorite tribes, and this is a deck I've looked into. I started putting a list together for it, and it's just one that I've been looking into throwing together just to be a more linear, straightforward path in like a merfolk deck. So, like, I would think if somebody wanted to get started in blue and you're on a bit of a budget, merfolk are pretty cheap, right? Like, most of these cards that you want to play aren't that expensive. Like the main, so there's a set of, like we mentioned before, lords, which are like the big, like creatures that give your merfolk, they give them +1/+1, and some other abilities. The main one is they give Island Walk. So the main one here is Master of the Pearl Trident. It's 2 blue pips. Other merfolk creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Island Walk. That's kind of the main staple of this tribe. Is it likes to give you Island Walk, and it has a number of ways to turn your opponent's things into islands. Most notably, a new creature from Modern Horizons 3 in Harbinger of the Seas.
Yep.
1 and 2 blue simply says non-basic lands are islands. So it's like a blood moon.
Yeah.
But it turns things into islands. Which is absolutely fantastic. I love that.
I mean, reading at that card, if you have no blue in your deck and you're running a multicolored deck,
really
that
funny
card is immediate counterspell.
It's hilarious. It's like Blood Moon.
Yeah,
which turns things into mountains.
I did not realize that card came out in Modern Horizons 3. That card, I need to find that.
It's fantastic, and it's only about $5.
Yeah, I'm looking at that, and that is mean because it doesn't say in addition to their other types.
Correct.
It just says non-basic lands are islands. So,
So a lot of those multicolored decks, even some monocolored decks, like to use things like Maze of Ith to protect themselves, to keep things from attacking them. Some players have like utility lands like Homeward Path or Rogue's Passage or things like that.
Yeah.
Or you can just also really F up somebody's day with like just any kind of fun utility land they're trying to use. Just be like, no, how about you don't? How about it's just an island instead?
Yeah.
And that's it. It's just an island.
I mean, that's just mean. I
love it.
I'm looking at the top merfolk commanders right now, and Savluna, however the hell you want to pronounce it there, of Sea and Sky, what we were just talking about, and Emperor Mahal II are the only 2 monocolor merfolk commanders that are in the top 8.
Yeah, I mean, you've got plenty of other ones, like Kopala, Warden of Waves is good.
Yep.
But some of these guys just work better in the 99.
Yes.
So to speak, like, they just work better as part of the deck. And one thing I've always loved about the Merfolk tribe is, like, the cards themselves are relatively cheap. You won't find yourself spending more than maybe $10 on one card. At least you really shouldn't be. Like, you shouldn't be spending more than $10 on a card.
No. Like, I'm looking at it right now, and in the top 8 merfolk commanders, there's only 2 above $1. Or 3 above $1 if you want to include Chulane. The rest of them are all under $1. And I mean, I'm looking at this. If I was to build a Merfolk tribal deck, which I do have a plan to do, I'm probably gonna go Simic colors for mine. Um,
That was one I built years back in college when Ixalan first dropped, and we had that green blue guy when he came out.
Kumina or not Kumina. Kumina was from the new one. Nick Hinzel, current conductor, I believe, is from the original Ixalan, maybe. No, I'm still wrong.
Yep. So yeah, he's from the commander decks.
Okay, I know which one you're talking about then.
Yep, he was pre-con commander. Was my uh like the first Merfolk commander deck I built
Yes.
off of the pre-con.
Yep.
Yeah, he was cool. He was one in a green and a blue. You can tap a Merfolk, make Kumena unblockable. You can tap 3 Merfolk to draw a card, or tap 5 to put a 1/1 counter on each Merfolk you control. So he was pretty good with like just putting a bunch of Merfolk tokens into play and tapping, untapping effects. It was really good.
Yeah. That. Yeah, that was from Rivals of Ixalan, so that was the second part of the block there. Same one that brought us Kava, Atali, Galta, Nezahal. But
yeah, so like this, mono blue doesn't have to be this big, crazy, combo centric counterspell trap like nonsense. You don't have to do anything like that. You can roll with this, and like you don't have to do Merfolk either. If you want to do,
you could go zombies. Christ.
You could go zombies. You can go mono blue zombies. You could do like illusion tribal. That could always be fun. Illusion's got some new love.
Yes. Min Willie is one of the decks that I am actually working on myself right now, trying to put together a good list. I know she is very, very powerful.
What does she do?
Oh, God. So, Min Willie, the Illusionist, is 1 and 2 blue for a 1/3 Gnome Wizard. Her first ability, whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 1/1 blue illusion creature token with this creature gets +1/+0 for each other illusion you control. Which that in itself is disgusting, because she's already an illusion lord at this point. And she is giving other illusions the ability to bump each other up. So, then her second ability is whenever an illusion you control dies, you may put a permanent card with mana value less than or equal to that creature's power from your hand onto the battlefield. That's where it's going to get fun.
Yeah, I saw that. My brain went, ooh, Eldrazi.
Exactly. And
like, let me just completely botch the illusion tribal aspect and throw some giant Eldritch horror in there.
Yeah. So
this is why I don't play blue people. This is why I don't do that.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking for her is obviously I'm gonna have a way to make sure every single turn I can draw 2 cards. Otherwise, the deck's not going to go off. But I'm thinking with mono blue, go more of an illusion style tribal, but have those big ass creatures in there.
Yeah, you can definitely do that.
So you're going to have, let's see here. Ooh. Boom, boom, boom. So you're going to have cards like Phantasmal Dreadmaw definitely in there, who is a 6/6 dinosaur illusion with trample. Then you're going to have cards like Consecrated Sphinx. New card Phantom Steed should be in there. He's a 4/3 illusion. But there's a crap ton of cards that you're going to be able to put in here that is going to make this deck go crazy. I mean, some of the biggest ones. Obviously, you're going to want cards like Skull Clamp in there,
Yeah, for sure.
but you're going to have cards like Lord of the Unreal, who is another illusion lord. It gives all your illusions +1/+1 and hexproof. And Kravakin Mist. He has flying, and its power and toughness are equal to the number of illusions on the battlefield. So there is a lot of cards that you can make a Min Willy deck very good without going into the stereotypical mono blue style mindset of combos, infinite combos, and
Oh
counterspell
yeah,
this,
for sure.
counterspell that. With Min Willy, that's gonna be a deck that you're gonna focus on your draw step,
Yep.
and you're gonna focus on building up an illusion style tribal deck with some big ass creatures hidden in there. So, with that, I'm thinking we give a little sneak preview here. So, the next episode,
Yep.
I'm going to assume we are going to the next color, and that is going to be the color of death. We are going to be
Yeah,
talking
Death
about
and Decay.
mono black. Now,
Good times.
there's a few cards that I'm going to throw right off the bat. We are not probably going to talk about them as a commander. Just because I have no interest in making people's play groups hate them. Um, so, with that, the one on the top of my head, we're not going to talk about Turgid. Got
Yeah,
it
no, we
right.
can avoid. Yeah, we can avoid that one. That one's just a whole mess of. How about you don't, you crazy
Yeah.
bastard?
Yeah, she's one of the cards that when that set first came out, I wanted to build her so bad. I went out and bought her single, and then I started reading other people's opinions on her.
Yep.
um, I'm big on theft style decks. I think they are a lot of fun using other people's cards to hurt them, but a lot
There's
of
better
people,
ways to do it.
yeah.
So, like, for those that don't know, Turgid God of Fright is a 5 mana, 3 and 2 black legendary creature god. She has Menace because, why not? Give it Menace, sure. Whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent or discards a permanent card, you may put that card from the graveyard onto the battlefield under your control.
Yeah,
Yeah, there is no wait till the end step. There is no beginning of whatever phase, do it. It's they sacked it. Okay, cool. Now it's on your board.
yeah, and the
They
only way they
sacked
can get
it.
it back is with a card like Homeward Path or many of the other
Yep.
cards that say return your creatures or artifacts. But
Yep. So as soon as any permanent hits the graveyard, Turgid's got it.
yeah, and
It's yeah.
I wanted to build her so bad until I realized if I put her in my command zone, I am target number one.
Yep.
But the other cards that I would say we're probably going to stick away from are cards like Marrow Gnawer, Sheoldred the Apocalypse, and then you got Crick, Son of Yawgmoth. He is the number one mono black commander built on EDH Rec, and we're probably going to stick away from talking about him if I had to guess.
I mean, you probably just touch on like why he's so,
Powerful.
why he's there, what he does, things like that. But like it'll be the same. We'll go into the Black's philosophy and like what the color black strifes do, what sets it apart from the others, its goals and ambitions and all that stuff. One thing I was actually thinking we could do real quick here is see. So we're talking about blue and all of its greatness, like strengths, weaknesses, all stuff. How does blue see the other colors?
Oh God, definitely
So
not
like,
as talented as they are.
I mean, blue has its allies, right? Like blue has, its friends in like blue can see white as something that understands planning and thinking and having discipline and all that stuff. But I'm more so interested in the dynamic of red and blue.
Okay.
As like, because we see a lot of good, strong blue red decks, right? Like that is it style, spell slinging deck. But like the diversity between red and blue has always fascinated me, and how crazy it is that they work so well together when you combine them into something like Niv Mizzet or Mizzix. Like decks that just really try to sling so many spells. I
Yeah.
don't know. I just want to know like what your thoughts on that dynamic are.
I mean, I definitely think, like, just going off the top of my head, white and blue, they probably have a mutual understanding with themselves.
Yep.
Um, white is kind of the law enforcement of Magic, where
Right.
blue is definitely the rebel. I wouldn't necessarily
Oh,
say they're the bad guys, but I would say they're that uncontrollable detective on that force, and they're gonna do whatever they want, and everyone else is just gonna have to catch up or pretend like it didn't happen. Perfect example. I've been rewatching NCIS recently,
hmm.
and when I think of like a white blue character, Agent Gibbs from NCIS fits that mold perfectly. He has a strict code that he follows, which is the white, but he does it his own way. And he has his own set of rules that aren't necessarily what the department's rules are. And he's kind of a wild card, where I kind of feel like blue leads that aspect. Um,
Honestly, I would have put red as more of the wild card
yeah,
character.
red might have been red as well, but then with the is it color combination, you got obviously red is pyromaniac. um,
Right. They're that. It's like I always see them as like it's like the antithesis of blue, right? Like blue is that take your time, be passive, analyze the situation, and then red is just like no, why think? Go hard, go fast. Use head to bonk door open. Don't use head to think.
yeah,
And so like when you combine the two together, it makes for a very interesting dynamic of wanting to be creative. I think when you put the two together, they take parts of like the creativity and intellectual nature of blue, and it combines it with the pure unbridled anarchy of red
yes,
to give you that like mad scientist goblin that we have in like Mizzix, you know?
yeah. I mean, a good thing I was thinking of, best way to describe is it would be you have a scientist working on a computer,
Yeah.
and the computer stops working. He's trying to figure out why it's not working. Well, then you got the goblin that walked in the corner, and he's like, "Well, you try hitting it again, like the old school N64 days where you had to blow
Yep.
into the cartridge to make it work."
Yeah, this one just slaps it on the top of the thing. It's like, okay, it
Exactly.
works.
Think of
Yeah.
is it like your old dad or your old grandparents? Well, you see them with their cell phones or their laptops, just hitting it, trying to make it work better.
And then it actually works. And it's like,
Yes,
how, what?
exactly. And then you got my personal favorite two color pairing, Demir. So you got blue and black.
Yeah. That's a good one. Those two, uh, What's the word I'm looking for? Uh, I literally just had complement. There we go. They complement each
Yes.
other kind of interestingly,
Yeah.
I
So,
think.
I mean, my first thought when I hear Demir is zombies. They're the mad scientists, necromancers. Granted, that's not all they're good with, but that's my first thought. I mean, obviously, you got corporate espionage and spying and ninjas that are all Demir, but I think of Demir as the smart guy in the room that knows to use death and destruction to his advantage.
Yeah. Which,
Um,
like, yeah, black and blue kind of go hand in hand with each other because, like, blue looks at black players, like, the black color thing is like, okay, well, you don't care how you reach the end goal,
yeah, pretty
right?
much.
Like, you have your ambition, you have your goal, and you don't care how you get to it. And there's some kind of mutual respect in that, I think, where it's like, blue is all about the pursuit of knowledge and knowing that knowledge is power and they cannot really care how they get to that end goal. So when those two meet, I think it's a very dangerous combination when black and blue get together.
Yeah, they are definitely some of the better decks out
Yep.
there. So the one thing that I want to bring up here, and this will be one of the last things we talk about, because I want to try and do this once an episode, is we are right in the heart of spoiler season. We got 3 new sets coming out that are all looking pretty promising for the most part. You got Bloomborough coming out next month, which
Oh yeah, it does.
it looks pretty great. Um, there's not a single human in this set, and for those that like those squirrel tribal decks, you're gonna be in for a treat here.
Oh my goodness, I saw the squirrels. The
Oh my
squirrels are
god,
insane.
we got a lot of tribal card support in this. Um, Everything from squirrels to frogs to rabbits now, and even some otters. But the 2 biggest ones that I've seen the most support for this set are we got more rat cards, and we've seen a lot of frog cards. Um, the rat cards are definitely very, very interesting. We're going to be getting a new potential commander for a rat card. Vren Relentless. He is going to be 2 in Demir for a 3/4 rat rogue. He is Ward 2, and his ability text reads: if a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. And then at the beginning of each end step, create X 1/1 black rat creature tokens with this creature gets +1/+1 for each other rat you control, where X is the number of creatures your opponents controlled that were exiled this turn. That can get very dangerous very, very quickly.
Yeah,
So,
rats are gonna be. Yeah, rats are. I don't like rats.
yeah. Rats are going to get a lot of help and support here with this next set coming out. But besides from Bloomborough, we had Assassin's Creed just come out. And the other major set that's coming out that was announced a while ago is Duskmourn.
That one looks cool.
This,
I'm interested in that one.
yeah, this is looking unbelievable. From, if I had to guess, we will probably end up getting a Betrayal at House on the Hill crossover with this. Kind of like how with the Murders at Karlov Manor, we had a Clue version come out. From what I've been
Yep.
reading, Duskmourn takes a lot of inspiration from Murders at House on the Hill and other old school 80s nostalgic Scooby-Doo type vibes. With with
Yeah, it
that.
definitely sounds really cool. I mean, I
Like
think
the
we might actually have some kind of like horror slasher theme to it,
exactly. I
was
mean,
what I heard. And so like if they can do something like that, if I see a Michael Myers inspired legendary creature, I'm gonna lose my shit because I
oh,
love Halloween.
oh,
Halloween is my favorite slasher film of all time.
it's one of the best. I mean,
Yeah.
I already see right now. I'm looking on Magic Spoiler, and I'm looking at some of the variant artwork that they have, and it is
Yep.
100% straight out of the 80s. Um, there's gonna be one equipment card straight up called Chainsaw, and when it enters the battlefield, or all it says when it enters, doesn't even say enters the battlefield.
Yes,
Um,
that is a new thing they're doing where they shortened enter the battlefield into just now enters.
yeah,
So we actually see that on a lot of Bloomborough cards now. It simply says when this creature enters or when this thing, whenever this card enters, do this. So that's their new thing that they touched on in an article a while back,
yeah. I just happened to
which I'm
notice
just
it
like,
for the first time reading this card, but
yeah, it's interesting.
this chainsaw, it's pretty sweet. I mean, when it enters, it deals 3 damage to up to one target creature, and whenever one or more creatures dies, put a rev counter on chainsaw. And
Oh, that's hilarious.
equipped creatures get plus X plus 0, where X is the number of rev counters on chainsaw. That is kind of disgusting. um,
We are also getting with Duskmourn new arch enemy cards,
yes, that is something
which
I am
is gonna.
personally really excited about.
I'm
Um,
gonna look. I love the arch enemy play style. I think
so
that's gonna be really cool.
yeah, so I was looking at an article the other day with the lead designer from Duskmorn, and
Hmm.
she came out and said that they are revamping Arch Enemy, and she was looking for a way to do it ever since they kind of revamped Planes Chase and how they started selling or sending Planes Chase cards with some of the commander decks a couple sets ago, and each precon is going to come with there's 4 precons I believe for Duskborn,
Yep.
and they are all set up to be able to play arch enemy with each other. Any of the
Which is
decks,
amazing.
yeah, any of the 4 precons can be the arch enemy, and they each have their own exclusive. What the hell are they called? They're not planes cards.
Just like arch enemy
Yeah, I want to
cards, I
say
think.
it's their tactics. So, for those that
Yeah.
don't know, Arch Enemy is a format of the game similar in sense to Planes Chase, where there's a secondary deck of cards that you draw every turn. Some of the new rules for Planes Chase or for Arch Enemy is there's only 2 life totals. There is the Arch Enemy's life total and the opposing group's life total. Before, when I know when Jack and I were playing a lot of Arch Enemy, every person had their own life total. Well, they
Yep.
changed that in the reimagining of Arch Enemy for this set. So the heroes are going to have 40 life total spread out amongst each of them, and so is the Arch Enemy. And the cool thing about Arch Enemy is it's a 3v1, 2v1, however you want to play it. But the heroes, we'll call them, they are able to block for each other. So if Jack and I both have, if Jack has a 1-1 or nobody on the field, and I got a bunch of tokens and or anything like that that I can block with, if the arch enemy's swinging at him, I can block for him, which is an
Yeah, it's really
interesting
cool.
mechanic. But I'm very excited to see them bringing back Arch Enemy. I'm super pumped for it. It's gonna be a lot
I think
of
it's gonna be
fun.
really cool.
And each of the new precons are coming with a deck of tactics, I believe they're being called. So any of those precons can be the arch enemy, and they have their own tactics, which is cool. The one thing she did say is if you have the old arch enemy cards, you can still technically play with them, but some of them won't make sense because now everyone shares a life total as opposed to having their own. The one thing I wanted to touch on because I've been trying to rack my brain around this. Is Magic is doing something different um in November here. And they're releasing a new set. And this is going to be called Foundations. From what I understand about this is they are changing up the way standard is played essentially, which is huge. And what this article says that I was reading the other day is Foundations is going to be legal in standard through at minimum 2029, which normally standard cards rotate out.
Yeah,
And
they usually do. That's really interesting.
yeah, and Foundations is going to be releasing November 15th, and some of the spoilers that have come out for them, there's only been 5, I believe. And those 5 cards are Llanowar Elves, which I hope everyone knows what Llanowar Elves is. It's just a 1 green, 1/1. It's a mana dork. But
Yep, I prefer green.
then you got a card like Day of Judgment that's on here.
That's interesting.
You have Anthem of Champions, which for those that don't know, it's green white. Creatures you control get +1/+1. You have a mono black, 9 lives familiar. And then you got mono blue, Omniscience. So, the way I'm understanding this is they're making it so standard is a little bit easier to follow. Now, as commander players, I don't know if this set's going to have anything worthwhile for us to pick up. Unless you don't have Llanowar Elves for some reason, or an Omniscience, or Anthem of Champions.
It's Omniscience.
Omniscience. I'm
Yep.
pronouncing it as it's spelled out. But I think for Magic as a whole, I think they're trying to bring back more standard play. And the fact that it's going to be legal through 2029 says that they understand that a lot of people hate having to revamp their decks every few months. So
That's why the other sets exist. That's why you
Yeah.
can just go and play Modern or just play. That's why what Commander is so popular, I think, is that you just get to do so many other things with it, and you have just such a wider pool to work with.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting take. I'm highly interested to see what other cards they bring into it.
Yep.
Not sure if anything's going to be even worthwhile for us. I mean, Anthem of Champions, I'll probably pick up that one just because the artwork on it looks really cool. But I'll wait to hold my judgment on that one. For now, I'm really looking forward to Bloomburrow and Duskmourn, though. And
Yeah, Duskmourn really has my attention. I like the look of some of these Commander decks. The black and red one that's coming out called Endless Punishment sounds like a lot of fun to me.
Oh my god, yeah. But the artwork in Duskmourn looks fantastic.
Yeah, I'll be
As-
looking at that closer than Bloomburrow. I think Bloomburrow is going to be one that I'll look into it for the sake of our stuff here, but I don't think I'm going to be buying anything from it. It just doesn't really vibe with me personally.
Oh yeah. I mean, the issue with Bloomburrow that I have, it is very what the hell do I want to call it? It has it reminds me of the old school late 80s, early 90s children's cartoons that are focused
which is
around exploring.
Yeah, which I kind of like those films as a kid. You got Secret of Nim,
That's what I was thinking
which
of.
was an absolute masterpiece of a film. So I'm all about that. I saw some of the trailers for it, for this set, some of the animated trailers. They look actually really good, really well done hand drawn animation. So it's definitely got a cool aesthetic to it. It seems like it'll be a good set, but it's just not one that I probably won't buy any of the precons for just because I
Oh, I mean,
need to hold back on buying precons. I already bought a bunch of precons from the last stuff, so
yeah. I mean, I
It's
have a
more so me
couple.
to hold off.
Yeah, I have a couple the precons pre-ordered. Um,
Yep.
but that's mostly because I know my fiance would be really into the animal aspect of the set, and I'm trying to get
Right.
her into playing more. Um, but in terms of artwork, I'm not sold on Bloomborough yet. I'll probably get a bunch of the cards just because they are some of them are very powerful cards already looking at them.
Oh yeah, they got some cool stuff in there,
Yeah.
mechanically speaking.
Yeah, mechanic wise, the set looks great. Um, a lot of different tribal help with it. Um, but I'm really looking forward to Duskmorn, finding out more about that. It looks really interesting. I love the 80s horror vibe that it's got going on. But I'm also interested once. I have a feeling once Duskborn comes out, I want to say it comes out in September.
The 27th, yeah,
Okay, yeah.
27th of.
Yeah, once Duskborn comes out, I'm interested to see what's next with Magic. Because after September, we don't have any more information other than Foundations. And I want to say it's usually in October or November that we start seeing Wizards put out their time map here for what we're going to get. Um,
I'm fine with, like, personally, I'm fine with them delaying stuff. I
Yeah.
think we've got enough to go on here. Like, Words of the Coast, you can stop now. It's okay. We don't need any
no, I'm hoping.
new sets. Like after Duskborn, we're good. You can hold off for a second. Take a minute to breathe. It's okay.
Well, I think that's one of their biggest issues is they're trying to flood and saturate the market. And I remember when I first started playing during like Amonkhet era, like consistently playing, each set had essentially two sets with it. And first set was the beginning of the story, the second set was the end of the story. I mean, with Ixalan, you had Ixalan and then Rivals of Ixalan. And that was really the last one because we've been going one and done on different planes, it seems like, for a long time now. And I wish.
Like Murders of Karlov Manor kind of just cut off in its one set.
Murders of Karlov Manor. If I know we've talked about it before, but it feels like they wanted to initially do that on New Capena, but they were told no.
Yeah.
We want to bring it back to Ravnica. I mean, you can see it in all the artwork. Huge vibes of New Capena for all the artwork on that set, and it looks like they were just like, nope. Everyone loves Ravnica, so we're setting it on Ravnica. But
I try like that. Oh, I really went off on a tangent here to close things out.
Oh my god, yeah. But all right, everyone. Thank you guys for listening. Next episode, we are going to be talking about the Almighty Black. It is going to be a fun episode. It's probably going to be one of my favorite personal ones. But as always, I am Kava.
This is Jack.
And we wish you guys all a good rest of your day. Have a great one,
Take it easy, y'all. Bye.